Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Markus. I'm the Assistant Dean of Resource Discovery and Management at the University of Wyoming Libraries. And prior to taking this position, I was the Wyoming State Librarian for about 7 years and had the wonderful opportunity to work with Lifetime Arts on a number of projects in Wyoming. Today's webinar, Creative Aging, Library Workers Leading the Way, is going to be a fun opportunity to learn more about all the wonderful things we've done in Wyoming, the wonderful work that Lifetime Arts does and will do with you in your libraries, and hear a couple stories. But before we get started and jump right in, I'd like to just say thank you for attending. We're really excited to hear from you, and we're really excited for our conversation today. With us, we have Krisene Watson. Krisene is from Campbell County Public Library in Gillette, Wyoming. And we also have Julie and Galia from Lifetime Arts, and they will introduce themselves throughout our program this morning. In an effort to let some of our last folks jump in, we would love for you to join the chat and answer this question. If you had all the time in the world and money was no obstacle, what art form would you learn? And while you're finding the chat there and making your answer, I'll be honest with you. I would love to learn how to sculpt. In my younger days, I took a couple of sculpting classes in high school, actually, with clay. Nothing ever turned out. It looked very lovely until it hit the kiln, and that was it. That was the end of it. Krisene, what about you?
I love every kind of art form there is, and so I'd like to spend more time learning oil painting, acrylics, watercolor, anything working with my hands.
Nice, very nice. Well, that's wonderful, and thank you all for answering that in the chat. It's nice to get to know a little bit more about some of you. And while you're continuing to do that and reading other answers, I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to Julie from Lifetime Arts.
Thank you so much, Jamie and Krisene. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Klein. I'm the Director of Education and Training here at Lifetime Arts. And we are also here with Galia Eden, who's our education producer. Thanks, Galia. Just a couple of quick protocols as we're all here together on Zoom. First, please, use the chat as you already are, which is great. If you have questions, comments that come up anytime over the session, go ahead and put them in the chat. Use the chat function to everyone, and you'll find the chat icon at the bottom of your screen in the middle of your toolbar. A staff member will see your chat, and we'll do our best to incorporate your question or comment in the Q&A at the end of our session. And please, if you would like to see the closed captioning, you're going to press on the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you'll turn it to show. If you're having trouble right now seeing the CC button in the toolbar, it could be that you need to expand your Zoom to full screen mode. And then you'd hover your pointer at the bottom of your window. Your toolbar should pop up, and that CC button should appear to the left of the button that says Reactions. So our agenda for today is on the slide, this slide coming right up. And our goals today are that we're going to really just dive in to learn more about the impacts of creative aging programs and look at them specifically in library settings. We're going to look at all the elements of this evidence-based program model and also the benefits both to older adult patrons, but also to library workers and librarians themselves. And finally, we're going to hear more directly from our library worker and state library leadership right here. That's Krisene and Jamie we just heard from. They're going to talk more about the impact of creative aging programs that they've seen on older adults in their libraries, but also on their larger community and their state as a whole. So Galia, any responses from the chat we want to highlight? Everybody's putting in these great ideas for art forms they want to study.
Yes, CL would like to learn stained glass. Linda, writing and painting. Laura, oil painting. Mary Jane, pottery. I'm seeing watercolor. You want to learn how to tango, Julie. Yeah, Deanna okay. Wants to weave on a loom, some more stained glass. We've got dance, lots of music stuff going on from Jason. Music, piano, guitar, singing, and violin. I doubt you're bad at it, and I'm glad you've done it all. Some more watercolor. There's a lot. Theater, sculpture, more sculpture. So this is all really cool. Thanks, guys, for sharing.
Thank you all. It's really exciting to be able to even just give this idea a little ponder and think about how much we'd like to use our time in our lives to investigate and go more in depth in some of these art forms. First, we're going to start with a video from our partners, EA Michelson Philanthropy, that's going to go into exactly this. We're going to see some of the impacts of arts programs specifically designed for older adults. Just a note that a lot of the programs in this video are museums, but we're going to be featuring, as you know, library programs in just a moment.
I see it around me. I see a lot of loneliness, especially as they get older and more physically challenged. It can be kind of bleak. And I can see that could be my future if I'm not careful.
It's taught by an artist, it's taught at the museum, it's geared for people over 55. I was really excited and I called and left a message right away and I said, can we get in?
And all of a sudden I was with a group of people who were eager to hear from me. I was eager to hear from them.
You get the companionship, which is so important. You know, I feel better. The little aches and pains that I came here with, I don't have them while I'm here.
It has amazingly opened up my world. I have more friends now than I've ever had since probably elementary school.
I think everybody's surprised at what they can do themselves. I feel so good about myself after I've done something, and I think most people here do the same thing.
It does help your confidence and self-esteem, and I think that's important with seniors.
We're busy and we're creating, and it's a nice vibe. I can't even say how wonderful it is and what type of experience it has been for me.
I'm the least isolated I've been in years. This class is a good part of it.
Thanks, Galia. I know we want to hear especially from our library experts here. So just for a bit, I'm going to go into a little bit of the background behind the work that you just saw. First of all, why is everybody talking about aging? You might have seen issues around aging. There's a real uptick in media talking about this. As you may know, worldwide, the population is aging. This is due to falling fertility rates, people are having fewer children, and rising longevity. Put simply, people are just generally living longer and healthier lives. Some stats to back this up is that the US Census Bureau projects that the size of the older population in the US is going to grow by almost 50%. This is from 2016 to 2030. And by 2034, adults age 65 and older are going to actually outnumber those under age 18 for the first time in US history. It's important to know that this demographic shift is just not a temporary situation. This is a permanent shift towards an older population. So with all this in mind, we also, of course, want to be aware of longevity inequality. How long you live depends on your race, your income level, your zip code, etc. So at Lifetime Arts, we really want all of our creative aging work to address these inequities. And we want to ensure that arts programming is accessible for the full span of diverse older adults and is also responsive to their needs. So I'd love to first, for a moment, hear from you. How are you all already engaging older adults at your library? And so we're going to do a little poll and get a sense of how are older adults already being engaged as patrons in your libraries? Everybody seeing that poll there? Go ahead and take a second to answer that. All right. What are we doing there, Galia?
All right, so it looks like a majority of you are engaging with older adults through programs offered at the library. We've got outreach programs offered in senior centers, community centers, assisted living facilities as a close second. And then it's pretty even across the board for the rest of them. And then I see other, a few of you said other, please feel free to share that into the chat. If you're not seeing some of the ways that you're engaging with older adults, throw that into the chat for us.
That's really great. And we know a lot of libraries, and so many of you, as you're mentioning, are already really engaging with older adults. And we are really happy about that here at Lifetime Arts, especially based on the recent Surgeon General's report, which you may have heard about, which is about the increase of social isolation sort of across all communities. But as mentioned in the video that we just saw, there's really strong evidence that older adults age 50 and older are really going to be possibly be socially isolated or lonely in ways that can take years off their life. The term we tend to throw around is really social isolation is as dangerous to health as smoking. And current research suggests that loneliness is going to be experienced among what's called vulnerable older adults. This would be immigrants and older adults who identify as BIPOC and LGBTQIA+. So all the engagement that you're doing with older adults in your community can be part of the solution to this problem. And a special aim of creative aging programs that we're going to be talking about today is to also alleviate some of that isolation. We, of course, need to mention another major impact on aging and our view of it, which is ageism. The World Health Organization reminds us that ageism can be institutional, it can be interpersonal, but it can also very much be self-directed. We often are going to hear older adults that say they won't go to senior centers because they're full of old people, and we all tend to have these biases about aging ourselves. In fact, new research by Dr. Becca Levy in a book called Breaking the Age Code proves that when we're exposed to negative age stereotypes, our actual health suffers. There's going to be higher risk of cardiovascular events and memory loss if we intake negative stereotypes about aging. So as creative aging advocates, we think of growing older as a natural and positive aspect of living if we're lucky. And rather than approaching older adulthood as a time that's fraught with regret or confusion or isolation, we instead can approach it as a time of potential and growth, which relates to all the art forms you all are going to be studying in your future. So this is where creative aging comes in. So what is creative aging? And we define creative aging as professionally led instructional arts programs that build skills over time. This is across all the arts disciplines, performing, literary, visual, etc. In short, this is basically arts education, but specially designed for older adults. I think we all here probably have a sense that the arts are good for us. We all feel better after we engage in art making and learning, right? And actually more and more there's research to back this up. The creative aging model we're going to talk about today was actually developed in part from this study, the Creativity and Aging Study. It was led by Dr. Gene Cohen out of George Washington University in 2006. And the study was done over 3 years in 3 different sites. And in each site, there was a control group. These were adults ages 65 to 103, went about their regular activities. And then there was an intervention group. And that group went to professionally conducted arts and cultural programs. Both groups were well matched in terms of functioning at the start of the study. But after taking part in those arts programs, that intervention group actually ended up using less medication. They had fewer doctor's visits. They had less depression. They actually had a decrease in falls. They had reduced risk factors for disease and disability. And overall, they just became much more engaged and active in their lives. So as we always say at Lifetime Arts, these programs are instructional. They're not arts therapy, but they do have incredible therapeutic benefits. We're going to hear more about that from Krisene in just a bit. So just a little bit about Lifetime Arts. So we were established in 2008 as a national service organization to really help build an infrastructure for this field of creative aging. And so we provide training, professional development, just like today's webinar. We have online resources, technical assistance, and we also do a lot of consulting. We basically provide the nuts and bolts of how to create these kinds of programs and then sustain them. And our goal is really to help community-based organizations break down silos and build partnerships to be able to deliver these kinds of programs that recognize older adults as both creative and social learners. And we especially love working with you all, with libraries. Lifetime Arts was actually founded with a library project that was in the Westchester, New York library system. And we've gone on to work with state library systems across the country, also citywide systems like Boston, New York City, and more. And we've just found again and again that libraries are incredible places to lead creative aging programs. And why would this be? Well, as you all know, libraries are open to all, they're age neutral, they're really barrier free. They have a particular attraction to older adults. This came up when you were all responding and how you're already engaging older adults at your sites. And libraries are just known, in their communities as places of learning and quality programming. So creative aging is really a perfect fit. And all the pictures here on the slide are of creative aging programs in libraries across the country. So you're going to hear in just a moment from Krisene and Jamie about some of the incredible successful programs in this model that have been taking place in libraries in Wyoming. I just wanted to give a preview of just the core framework for these programs. So basically, they're art classes, right? They're visual, performing, literary, music. They're taught by a practicing teaching artist. So this means someone that is skilled in developing a sequential arts curriculum. This is a paid arts educator, not a volunteer. And the teaching artist also includes social engagement opportunities throughout the class to help students build relationships with each other through the art making and the learning. The class ideally is at least 8 sessions, is held in sequential weeks. In this way, folks have a chance to really practice the art form over time and grow their skills. Each class should be a minimum of about 90 minutes. So folks, again, have that time to really delve into the art form they're studying. And registration is always required in these classes to build buy-in and commitment. So folks come back as best they can week to week. The classes can be free or fee-based, depending on the organization. Of course, we should note in libraries, these programs do tend to be free to participants. And finally, an important aspect is a culminating event. And this is the idea that at the end of every program, there is just a celebration of the work that was created over the 8 or so weeks. And that's shared with other community members. So this might be a performance, a reading, maybe a gallery show. And we'll hear in a bit about some culminating events in Wyoming. So when we work with libraries, and so I want to stress with you all, this model is adaptable, right? By each site, each community, in whatever ways best serve their own constituents. So in this way, creative aging programs really should be responsive. And that means that library workers, teaching artists themselves, really see themselves as being in partnership with their students. The program should always, meet their community where they are. It should meet folks' interests, maybe also their cultural backgrounds. It should allow for personal choice. And that aspect of personal choice is really necessary for the best learning outcomes for adults. So throughout the planning process, when we're surveying folks to see what classes they want to take, when we're looking at our sites, then when we're actually doing the class with older adults, planning the culminating event, all of this should really honor older adults' experiences and also engage their voices and their leadership. Finally, one thing we've really found creative aging programs are great for with libraries is really opportunities for libraries to reach out into their community, build new partnerships. And it really ends up showcasing what incredible community centers libraries can be. So these programs provide opportunities for libraries to recognize what's already happening out in the community. How can we build upon that? You'll hear from Krisene in just a moment. She supported most of her creative aging programs with really innovative partnerships with a local college makerspace, with a senior center and more. And these partnerships really helped support and build her programs. At Lifetime Arts, we also like to build partnerships larger than that even, cross-sector partnerships that are at the state level, the regional level, the national level, all with the interest of launching creative aging programs and building capacity so these programs can continue and sustain into the future. So one of those such partnerships was a statewide partnership with which both of our panelists today were involved in, and that was Creative Aging in Wyoming Libraries. It's the title of that initiative. And that was a collaboration between the Wyoming State Library, the Wyoming Arts Council, and Lifetime Arts between 2020 and 2022. Funding was provided by the Wyoming Community Foundation and the May and Stanley Smith Charitable Trust. And the goal was really to strengthen Wyoming public libraries, like Krisene's, as community anchors for positive and creative learning, and also to just expand arts learning opportunities for older Wyoming residents through all the local branches. So the initiative started with a planning phase, a training phase, and then an implementation phase that ran over 2 years. And with support from Lifetime Arts, libraries in 13 county systems ended up conducting 36 creative aging programs across the state. And these really ran the gamut. There were painting programs, photography programs, pottery. There was a ukulele program. There was an Adobe Illustrator, barnwood, and plasma class, which Krisene may speak more about. We're going to hear more about these programs in a moment. But we also want to note that we're also working both with Wyoming and the Missouri State Libraries on a national project currently, which is called Advancing Creative Aging Through State Library Leadership. And that's supported by IMLS's Laura Bush 21st Century Library Program. That also includes training, seed programs, and networking opportunities for librarians. And we're also working on a regional project right now, which is called Advancing Creative Aging in the Western States. This is supported by the May and Stanley Smith Charitable Trust, and it's a current collaboration between Lifetime Arts and 5 Western states, with the goal of really strengthening these cross-sector partnerships so that we can more effectively serve the region's older adults through creative aging programs. So Gali is gonna, right now, sharing some links. So if you wanna learn more about those projects, that's available for you there. Let's get to the fun part, which is our panel. So I'm really thrilled to introduce our panelists and 2 folks I would call real champions of creative aging in libraries. I'll reintroduce them because they introduced themselves already, but a little more background. Krisene Watson and Jamie Markus. So creating is a passion for Krisene Watson, who has worked for the Campbell County Public Library in Gillette, Wyoming for the last 8 years. She's the outreach manager and enjoys making the creative aging classes available for her patrons. She's hosted 6 wonderfully engaging programs so far, some of which are pictured here on the slide. And these programs included oral histories on steroids, plasma metal art, ceramics, intro to drawing and painting, Brazilian embroidery, and watercolor painting. And Jamie Markus introduced himself earlier, but I'll say again, he's the Assistant Dean of Resource Discovery and Management at the University of Wyoming Libraries. And in this capacity, he oversees the selection, cataloging, and findability of over 5 million print and electronic resources that are found in the library collections. And prior to joining the University of Wyoming Libraries, Jamie worked at the Wyoming State Library for over 18 years, and the last 7 was the state librarian. And he's a past president of the Western Council of State Libraries and the Wyoming Library Association. All right. Thank you both so much. And please, as folks have questions in the chat for these 2 creative aging library experts, please throw them in. But I'll start with you, Krisene. I just wonder if you might speak about just first your expectations about doing a creative aging program in your library, and then what turned out to be true. What did you first expect, and then how did it actually happen?
When I first got the call to do it, I had no idea what it would entail. I just knew that they were talking about classes, but I knew nothing about it. And then we went through the training and saw that we needed to do community surveys to see what facilities there were available, what people wanted, different surveys like that. And we got busy doing the groundwork and then started classes. And so it's been great. I rely on that training that I had to put programs together, and it makes it so much easier now that we've done that groundwork.
You did so many programs and so many unique, do you want to describe sort of what you feel like was the most unique program you got to do as part of that initiative?
I've done 6 programs, and so they're all fun programs, but in between 2 of them, the oral history on steroids and the plasma art, both of them were kind of different. The steroids, the oral history on steroids is we did oral histories, but yet we took videos of the people and took their pictures and put it into a program called Camtasia and made a video with it. So they could put music to it if they wanted music with it. They could put pictures in it while they're explaining the stories. And so it really brought the stories alive. And in the at the culmination event, we had a night at the Oscars, and so I made little Oscars for them to hold and stuff like that for their pictures. And just little things like that to make it more fun. And then their families came to watch their stories. And sure, their stories were only like 3 or 4 minutes long when we got the video done, but it was just amazing. And the time that we got to get to know them, and that's been my favorite class of all.
Krisene, you have a lot of beautiful stories, but I know you have a few of just real impact on older adult students. Do you want to share one of those with us?
When we were doing the plasma art class 3 weeks earlier, one of the ladies, her husband had passed away, and she thought that it would be good to get out of the house and do something. So she signed up for the class. And while she was there, she met another lady who had lost her husband, and the two became very close, and it helped her through that grief period. And then a year later, when the year anniversary of her husband's death came along, they got together and did a few things together to help her through that time period. And that was key, because it was so hard for her to lose her spouse. And I think the class helped her through that. There's so many other stories I could relate of how this has really impacted the class members. You'd have to be here for an hour.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for that, Krisene. Something that you did so incredibly, and I'd love for you to talk more, is these partnerships, right? So you led these programs, but you use them as opportunities to really reach out deeper into the community and partner with, I think, organizations the library really hadn't before. And can you talk some more about that?
Gillette College's Area 59 was one where we did the plasma art class, and they were struggling because of COVID and stuff like that, that people weren't coming in. It was really slow there for a while. And so when we went to them and asked them if they'd be willing to do a class, they were like, hadn't thought of this. And so we set up the class and figured out what we were going to do. And that was the plasma art on barnwood frames. We set that up and got people signed up and everything. And as we were doing it, the people who were running it, Ellen and Jan and Greg, started seeing that these people are hungry for classes. And so they started doing more classes geared to them, in the sense that they dropped the price for the seniors so that they could come on the student price, which is $25 a month, killer price. They can also use all of their tools and stuff like that in the building, which is phenomenal, and be able to have access to that information. So that was one place. And now it's hard to get on one of their machines because there's so many people that are there, and repeat people from my class are coming in there and bringing their families and friends. And so they're so busy that they're going to have to hire some more people to work there, which they didn't have that problem before. And then at AVA, it's the AVA Arts, Community Arts. We had never had a partnership with them, and we did the ceramics class, and it was just wonderful. People loved it, and they're seeing more people staying and doing more work after the class is over and enjoying that. And so getting those partnerships going was helpful for them, and also helpful for us.
It's so amazing, Krisene, because really you had like this such wider impact in the community, and helped these other organizations see older adults as possible students and patrons and supporters as well, and really help them recognize that audience that they weren't serving, which is really incredible. One last question for you, and we'll get to a little more, but this is not a lot of work, right? I mean, running some of these programs, especially to the extent that you did. Can you talk a little bit about how you, along with managing the rest of what you're doing at the library, your full-time job, how did you incorporate these programs into your pile of work you had to do?
I tried to schedule my time so that I had time to do the rest of my job that I needed to do, and then carved out time for this because it was so important. And I saw the impact that I would do anything to make sure these classes are going. But once you do the groundwork and have that background, then the other classes are a piece of cake to put together. And you have surveys that help you write up the final reports, things like that, that make it really easy for you. So I think, and plus the other classes, because I have four programs going on this year, that I needed some help. So I got some volunteers that are in that age group to be my my volunteers to help with it. And so they're at every class. I don't have to be there at every class. I like to be at every class, but I also know that I have a job to do other than this. And so I have to rely on them to take pictures and send me pictures and take roll. And I always have goodies there. So if anybody's blood sugar is dropping, there's some sugar there. That's always
Very
nice.
important. Yep.
So, you know, I just try to make it so it's a benefit for everybody there. And so my volunteer, she was an extra person, but because someone had to go out on surgery with this last one, she was able to step in and do a project, and she did a phenomenal job on her project. And so it made it a benefit for both.
For sure.
So keeps my numbers up.
Say again.
It keeps my numbers up, so I'm above 8.
Yep, right. Well, you're serving the volunteers as well, right? They're being incorporated into the work. Thanks, Krisene. I'm gonna move to you, Jamie, and please any questions in the chat for either of these creative aging champions. But for you, Jamie, we're gonna take a step back in the past to look at, you know, what made it possible for Krisene to have funding to do these programs and training, right? Which was this collaboration between the State Library and Lifetime Arts with support by these generous foundations. So do you want to talk about how that first even came about? How did creative aging come into your framework back when you were at the State Library of Wyoming?
Oh, sure. I'm happy to talk about this. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I want to say it's about 5 or 6 years ago, I went to a meeting with state librarians in Washington, D.C. And it was the type of meeting where you have a big program in the morning and then you have some table talks in the afternoon. And I was paired at lunch and then in the afternoon table talk with Maura O'Malley, who is the current president of Lifetime Arts. And I'm fairly certain there were other folks from Lifetime Arts too. So forgive me, Julie, if you were actually sitting right there too, because we just had such a wonderful conversation at lunch where you're just trying to take a break from your conference day. And instead I got more work done at lunch and felt more energized for the afternoon than I've ever been at any other conference. I left that meeting and those brief interactions with Lifetime Arts and knew that we needed to bring them to Wyoming. We need to find some way to get involved with creative aging in Wyoming. Now, it took some time because like everything, money doesn't grow on trees. And sometimes, you know, you want to do a statewide project, or at least in Wyoming, we did 13 our first go around. That's 13 county public libraries. There's only 23 county public library systems in Wyoming. So we're talking 60% of our libraries participated our first go around. We couldn't do it using the money we had on hand. So we did have to look for some strategic partners. And we were incredibly happy when Lifetime Arts brought the foundation to us. And we used the big ticket money from the May and Stanley Smith Charitable Trust, as well as some money from our Wyoming Community Foundation and our partners at Lifetime Arts, as well as the Wyoming Arts Council, to put together one heck of a good program. And I think we were about a month into that program before we already started writing a grant for the next round. And that's when we went big. And that's when we went to the Institute of Museum and Library Services and asked for $646,000 to go multi-state and work with our friends over in Missouri. It's also, at the moment, it's actually multiple states, because we have our friends Khalifa from California who are helping to run that particular project. And again, as Julie said, now we've got a little regional work group as well. And that's because this is such a wonderful program. What I will say is, 6 years ago when I sat down to lunch, I knew that creative aging for older adults was an important aspect of growing older and things that libraries were providing and could provide, but I had no idea that Lifetime Arts, or that there were organizations like Lifetime Arts out there who had a curriculum already developed, who had already done the research, who understood that, no, this is not a one-off type of a situation. This is not a come on a random Thursday and paint a picture and then go home, but this needed to be iterative, and you needed to have at least 8 sessions. And then at the end, you had to show off that art or whatever it was you created in some fashion to really have some sort of culminating event, because that's really what locked in both the learning, but also the social aspect of this opportunity. I mean, seriously, we started down the path once and we just haven't looked back.
So great, Jamie. It's so lovely to hear this story. And so that's what you thought at the beginning, right? You're like, okay, this feels right. And what do you feel now has been the results? What do you see as the benefits, not only to the patrons, which we're talking about, but also to the libraries themselves and the librarians that you've been working with through the project?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that whenever I hear about a program that took place and I see the pictures, everybody has a smile on their face. Everybody seems to be having fun. And so from a patron aspect, it's just another amazing program that libraries are providing, albeit because, again, there's like 6 to 8 different sessions. It's a little bit different than what most libraries are providing from that one-off program. So that's been really good and energizing. As Krisene says, we've got former participants of these programs who are now volunteering for libraries. I'm not going to say that you do this to get foundation funds, but I do know of a number. I think I blacked out. Sorry about that. I do know of a number of libraries who have received nice follow-up gifts from participants who were really happy with what the interaction that they had. You know, what they got out of the whole program, that they wanted to pay it forward. And some of them have been just small enough to pay for supplies for the next round. And others have been much larger gifts. And I know that we as public library folks don't always think about our foundations, or nor should we put that first, but it certainly didn't hurt from a big picture perspective. From the staffing, as Krisene says, once you get through it once, the next one's that much easier. And then after all, I mean, she's doing four a year now, and many of our other libraries are doing the same thing, because you get in a little cycle. And not only do you find the staff time for it, you have patrons sort of demanding, what's next? When are we going to do next? And also, hey, you did this at the main branch. When are you going to take it down the street and do this smaller branch? Because I know at least 6 people who want to join in. And so those have been absolutely wonderful. I'll tell you one of the hidden gems, though, and I'm speaking here as a former state librarian, is the evaluative data and the pre-work that takes place before you actually decide what type of program you're going to do. Most of our libraries are happy to ask patrons, hey, tell us what kind of program you're interested in, and we'll see what we can do to throw it all together. But, you know, there's a framework here for going out and surveying the public. And a number of our libraries have used those surveys to increase visibility of the library. Not just this program, but the library in general is able to say, look, we are talking to certain constituents in our area, and not only are we thinking about doing this particular program, but here's all of our other offerings. And have you seen our calendar of events? And have you seen, and again, I'm so sorry with my camera. It's wonderfully, must be a cloud going behind
totally
me here from university. So I think that's my cue to shut up.
It's never a cue. Okay, real quick though, so Jamie, all this is so exciting. What feels like your hope or vision for creative aging moving forward in the state?
Well, the wonderful thing is that it just continues. We've gained some traction here in Wyoming now. We've got the money behind it. We have buy-in locally from our library staff, from our library patrons, from directors, and I just hope that it continues. And in fact, we've seen that. The Wyoming Arts Council secured funding to do their own version of creative aging, and not just in libraries, but in associated groups. And while I'm not positive that that's permanent funding and will go on forever, they've got enough for the next biennium, and they're just going to keep trucking forward to make this an established part of our life. Because as Julie said, the statistics bear out, it will be. So might as well get on the bandwagon now.
I love that, Jamie. Thank you. I want to ask you both the same question, but in slightly different forms, which is just for somebody here, be they library leadership, be they a library worker on the ground, what's your advice for sort of a first step? Like they're like, this sounds cool, but like, where do I start? Krisene, maybe I'll start with you just in terms of, they're on the ground in the library, what would be the very first step to kind of get started down this path?
Go through the Lifetime Arts training, because it'll teach you everything you need to know and guide you through it. And contacting you guys, asking questions. You guys have so much information within your staff that it really helps. It helps. You're not alone doing it. You have someone there helping you the whole way. So that's my first thing I'd do.
Thank you for that shout out, Krisene. I promise you're not being paid as a sponsor for an ad for Lifetime Arts. But would you, just within that, say somebody did, get our assistance or did or did not, what was the first step for you in terms of just even starting the ball rolling at the library itself?
Surveying the different entities within the community. We have some new quilting groups. We have some new things, stores, I should say, that have classes, and trying to find out what's out there and if they have teachers that can teach. Sometimes we're kind of remote, so it's hard to find teachers that teach plasma art, but yet the college has it, and so let's do it there. So finding those partnerships is key. It's very helpful.
That's great. And Jamie, what about you, if on sort of more library leadership level, or what would be a first step for anybody listening?
Well, I always say secure your funding, right? The average cost of the programs in Wyoming was about $2,200 for each 8-session program, which was absolutely wonderful, and all things considered, not really that expensive. But we as library workers often want to do things on the cheap. The framework from Lifetime Arts really suggests and really kind of demands that you use and pay teaching artists, because these are folks who know what they're doing. I mean, they're experts in their art, but they're also someone who's taken training on how to teach that art. And that is incredibly important. I think many of us have gone to programs or presentations in the past where folks are brilliant at what they do, but they don't know how to teach it exactly. And so if you find the right artist, or a set of artists, and get them involved in this program, then it really does run itself. And then the library's role is really just to supply the space and make sure that the supplies are in order, and make sure that the back end administration is taken care of. We're going to have cookies. We're going to make sure that our culminating event is at night, so that the friends and family of folks can come and see the artwork and do the art walk. So leave that to the library staff side, but really get a really robust teaching artist involved. And believe me, they're everywhere, because there are so many people who want to share what they know and learn. It's just grab your money, grab your artist, and you're halfway there, if not more.
Thank you both so much. So much wisdom gained through experience here. And I wanted to just turn it over to the chat, or if Galia, if any questions have come in, this is our official Q&A time. So any questions for me, for Jamie, for Krisene, from anybody about anything you've heard, or questions that are coming up in your own mind as you think about your library and what might your particular challenges be? Please go ahead and share those.
Deanna asks, what were some of the challenges you faced in getting libraries on board with these programs?
Maybe Jamie, you and I can both take this. Jamie, do you
Sure.
want to go first, and then I can talk a little bit about the training side?
Sure. From the state library's perspective, again, in Wyoming, we only have 23 county library systems. So we made sure that we were upfront on how much money we were offering, what it would take, how many hours, what the live training would look like if there was live training, or what the, how long it would take to do the online version of the training if that was also offered for our particular programs. So we were upfront. And then, quite frankly, we showed some wonderful videos that Lifetime Arts had prepared, although now you've got Krisene's wonderful videos, and there are more pictures now than there ever were before. So once we talked about the actual opportunity and explained it a little more, then we let folks make that determination on their own and just say, do you have the time to do this? And yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Krisene, maybe I will pass that to you, actually. Again, in terms of what your expectations were, how did maybe you first heard about this? If you felt any bit of resistance, which I don't know if you did, but what was key for you getting on board, you think?
Trying to figure out what what needed to be done and how much time it would take. And so I just tried to kind of prioritize my time to be able to get everything I had to have done for my job done, and then get out there and start hitting the pavement, hunting for different teachers and getting partnerships going. And so once I got that under my belt and sending out the survey, working with other people in the library to do different parts, our marketing people to do the marketing, things like that to help get the word out. And now we're inundated with people wanting more classes. I can't do enough classes right now. And so it's wonderful. People love it. Absolutely love it.
That's so great. And we know we have a bunch of questions coming, and I just want to also share, I think, from our end as trainers, and when we're working with library workers, right, it is, of course, that it is how much work is this going to be, you know? And I think something we stress a lot, as I mentioned earlier, is this framework is adaptable, right? The point is it should be, you know, reflecting of your own community, and it's an opportunity to be like, who is here, what is happening, and how can these programs reflect that? So I always, you know, find it's really important to stress that. Yes, you know, there's this particular 8-session model, and yes, you know, but everything, you know, should in the end be responsive to your folks. Some other questions I see, Dahlia.
Yes, so Jennifer asks, when choosing an art form, have you picked something that is affordable to students after the 8-week session?
Krisene, yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. In all of my classes, we try to find something that we can do outside of the class afterwards, so that they can continue on. Like the ceramics, they can go into Ava and work there for $5 and use, they might have to pay $25 for a huge block of clay, but they can use the kilns and everything else. Every Wednesday they can go in, it's open for anybody to come in during that time. So it's still affordable for them to do it. And when you get them hooked, some of these people are like, yeah, I can afford $5, let's go. And so they go and do it. And so it's been good.
Linda asks, we don't have many resources to pull from to join together to have the classes. What ideas could I use to get ways to have different programs outside of my library?
So I think in this context, yeah, go ahead, Jamie, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, talking to some of our other libraries in Wyoming and some of the branches, they have this very same, you know, conversation. If I can't do it in the library, or I don't have the money for the supplies, for ceramics or for knitting or whatever it happens to be, how can we still do this? And many of our libraries found the opportunity to partner with retirement centers. They also found opportunities to partner with local arts groups, whether they're official or unofficial, or just a gathering of quilters, the No Name Quilt Club, who come together and to work through things that way. Because I think maybe as humans, it's when we see somebody sitting in a group doing a thing, maybe at the library or elsewhere, we're like, that looks cool. How do I join in without joining in? And so becoming just the space and the organizational area to bring maybe some crafters together and put some sort of organizational structure around it, you know, and to promote it in a way that feels welcoming. Again, you see a quilt group sitting together, you're not going to necessarily go and sit down and join in. But if it's at the library and say, we've got quilting every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, or come join in, learn how to do a square, and it can build with very little, well, not very little effort, but with less effort than what you may think you need.
That's great. Krisene, did you have anything else on that?
I think that the time that it does take is worth it when you see the people and the impact it makes on their lives. It's worth it. It's worth the time to do it.
Thank you.
We've got another question here from Rochelle. We are a small library. How do you advertise?
Krisene, you want to talk to that?
We do it on our website and Facebook, and it can just be like we're doing a picture, we're doing a cutting board class. So we found a picture of a cutting board online, posted that with some text saying, this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it. If you're interested, sign up. And then they would call us and sign up, or we have a registration online. So that's how we're getting the word out, is through our website and our Facebook. We don't usually do a lot of flyers and things like that, just because of how much time that takes. And we have so many people that are watching our website now. They know that classes are coming up, and so they're on it because they want to be in that class. So they're watching.
And of course, some of your partnerships helped with recruitment, right, Krisene? Right. So you
Oh,
had
yeah.
a partnership with the senior center. That senior center helped provide folks, and I think did they also help transport folks to the program?
They didn't
No,
need to on that one. On
The
their
program
class.
happened there, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
they came in for the class, and then they stayed for lunch, and then they left. And so it made it so that it worked all the way around for the people. We had Ava would advertise for us when the classes were there. They're also advertising on theirs when we have them at Area 59. Even though they're not doing the class, they're advertising for us. And same with Area 59. They're advertising if we're having classes elsewhere, saying, hey, not only are we having this class, but these guys are having class also. So they're all posting and getting the word out. And so that helps us.
Thank you, Krisene. So we have a couple more questions. We have this one that came in from Amanda. Do you limit the number of participants per class? And do folks really have to be over 55 years old, or do you accept any age adult?
We do have a limit because the teachers can't handle more people. And some of the classes, buying all the supplies that you need, you have to limit it. So we limit at 10. We tried some classes at 13, and it was overwhelming for the teachers for the plasma art class. So we've limited it to 10. And there's never enough space. People want more. They want more. And then the second question was 55 and up. We've had one special needs person that came to the senior center art class because she worked there. And so she came to that class. And so she's younger, but yet she was also special needs. So we said, fine, we don't care. Come on in. We're not going to limit it. But I don't ask everybody for a card, their ID saying you're 55. If they've signed up for it, 99% of the time, they're over 55. I've never had anybody under 55 try to get into the class. They've asked, and I said, well, one more year. And so next year they'll be eligible. And so it just builds that anticipation for the next class.
That's great, Krisene. This comes up a lot, and we never mean to silo people by age, right? But it's just the idea that this class is designed with older adults, learning principles in mind. And so, of course, that is the focus, of who you're trying to serve. But as you said, you don't card people at the door. So.
All right, we have our last question. So time for one more. So I see Deanna in the chat. Have you had issues with people registering but not showing up? I've heard from libraries that they're still having a hard time getting folks in for programming.
The way I deal with it is I call everybody and say, okay, this is a commitment. It's an 8-week class. And I have to have a commitment that you're going to be there. You can miss one class if you have a doctor's appointment or something, but make up time, work with the teacher or something like that to make up the time. But I have to have a commitment because there's a lot of other people that want to be in here that are going to be able to be there. So if you're not going to be able to make it, please don't sign up. We need that spot for someone who will be there. And I've had everybody stay unless something happened, like one guy had a emergency knee surgery, and that happens. So 99% of the time, people stay through it because I tell them up front, this is the requirement of the grant. We have to have this many people in the class. And so I'm just up front with people and do it kindly, but I'm still up front with them and say, you can't be skipping class, And so.
And we suggested some of that language for our other libraries as well as part of the registration process. Look, you are committing to, you know, to the best of your ability and the best of your knowledge, your future 8 weeks with us, because we have a waiting list. And if you don't think you can make it, that's great. There will be other opportunities for you, but we'd love to have you since you're on our list. But please do show up if at all possible. And there are some really good stories in Wyoming of folks, you know, driving when they probably shouldn't have, in the snow from far away to get to class because they really wanted to learn ukulele up in Salt Lake County. They just had to do it. And that was not entirely smart, but hey, it all worked out and everybody had a great time. And they had a heck of a concert at the end of that creative aging ukulele program. And I will say that's one thing I did really want to mention is that Lifetime Arts are so broad. They cover everything from the ceramics to the, you know, to the crafty things, to the music, to singing, to word art like poetry. We've seen really the gambit, and you get a whole different group depending on which program you're putting on. And after you do the first one, honestly, people really get excited because you can leave up their art or their presentation or whatever it is they created in the library and showcase that as well.
Can I say something about the culmination programs? That has been key for these people to see their work. After our ceramics class, they were working on their stuff and they got everything done, and then they put them in the kiln, and then they were gone until they came out of the kiln, and then they came back for the culmination event, and it was when they finally saw it. And their family came. It was a huge event, and it just made a world of difference from they had created such beautiful work and they didn't realize that they could do that. I kept hearing comments about, wow, I could do that. I didn't know I could do that. That's great, you know. So it really does build their confidence in their in what they can do. It's wonderful.
That's great, Krisene. Thank you so much. I agree. The culminating event is a special cherry on top of this model, I think, and has a lot of effects larger, you know, than even the students themselves, also the community. You all have done such an amazing job of sort of, you know, ringing Lifetime Arts bell a few times too. So I did want to share with everybody that, you know, we're here, Lifetime Arts is here, and we want to support especially libraries and doing these programs. So you can also continue learning about this model on our Creative Aging Foundation's on-demand course, which is completely free, self-paced. It's an online course designed for individuals, also institutions from really any level of experience in the arts education field that are just seeking to run and sustain creative aging programs for older adults. So you can go through sequentially, you can hop around to get what sections that you need. It's full of instructional videos, also reflection exercises, lots of case studies, just like we heard today, interviews with creative aging experts and practitioners. So there's the website right there. You can learn more about it and register for free. Galia just put that in the chat. So we really encourage you to do that. And finally, just thank you. Thank you, Krisene. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Galia. Thank you, May and Stanley Smith Charitable Trust that supported our webinar today. And thank you all of you for being here and even starting to this exploration into how could creative aging be a part of your library's offerings. Great. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And we're here. Lifetime Arts is here for further questions you might have as you move forward on your journey. Have a great rest of your week.